Hey guys, how's it going? In this video, we will be covering one of the most powerful lineups in the game that you didn't know about. And no, we're not talking about the 10.0 lineup for Russia. Everybody knows about that lineup and how dominant it is, but rather the 11.0 lineup for Japan. Now, Japan has one of the best lineups in terms of what you get to spawn in with. I mean, you get 4 MBTs that all have access to JM33, which has up to 480 millimeters of armor penetration, and not to mention, all these tanks have a 4-second reload. And yes, I said 4, we're including the Type 90B Fuji because it's legit just a second Type 90B, which is awesome to have in a lineup like this. We also get access to one of my favorite tanks of the bunch, the TKX prototype. This one is my favorite simply because it gets Gen 2 thermals, plus all the other benefits that you get with the Type 90s. So, my only complaints with this lineup, or these vehicles, is they all tend to suffer from lack of gun elevation. And it doesn't feel like enough in a lot of situations, especially on hilly terrain. Now, I'm not talking about gun depression on hill, which might be a bit confusing because I'm talking about gun elevation, which you don't really think about that when cresting over a ridgeline or a hill. But with these vehicles, they do suffer from a lack of gun elevation, which means once you crest that ridgeline, let's say an enemy presents themselves, you're in a bit of a dip or a valley, and let's say you're going down that hill. Now, you're not going to be able to elevate your gun up like you would be with many other nations, like America or Russia. But this doesn't happen too often, but it does get you killed from time to time, so just be aware that you should be scanning those areas and knowing if an enemy potentially could push out when you're making yourself vulnerable like that, pushing down hills. Now, the other thing that these vehicles suffer from is a slow turret traverse. Now, this isn't the worst thing in the world, simply because these vehicles have amazing hull traverse and can just whip the hull around of this vehicle whichever direction you want to go. So, in order to counter this very weak turret traverse speed for an 11.0 vehicle, I like to simply make a little mental note to always keep my gun aiming relatively forward in a lot of engagements, or when I'm driving around the map, and I will swing my hull around towards whichever direction I spot an enemy so that I can get that gun around much quicker and point it where I want it to go rather than just turning the turret to face an enemy, which could, cost you very valuable time, which in a lot of situations can get you killed. So, with that said, I think Japan is a very solid lineup. I think the speed of these vehicles especially comes in very handy. So let's say you're on the A side of the map, but your team is engaging targets in between B and C. You have the speed and are able to respond quickly and get where you are needed. Or let's say things aren't looking so good on your side of the map, right? Your entire team has died around you or are currently in the process of dying around you. In a lot of situations where this is happening, a lot of the time you just kind of have to hunker down, hope for the best, and defend from the current position that you are in. Now with Japan, because of that great reverse gear, because of that great top speed, you can reposition and fall back to a more defendable position, which will allow you to defend that flank more effectively. Because speed in this game allows you to control the engagements. That's why the quick reload allows you to control the engagements. That 4-second reload is insane because there's a lot of times, and I know many of us have had this happen where we shoot an enemy and we hit them perfectly, right? Where we should have wiped out all the crew, but for whatever reason, that crew decides not to die, but rather gets oranged. Now, in a lot of situations, I find myself being able to do that follow-up shot because of that 4-second reload before the enemies can even get their turret turned around to face me. That reload, that speed, and just the flexibility, overall flexibility of these vehicles is amazing. Now, obviously, we do have to talk about the elephant in the room. The armor on these vehicles is not very good, right? But There's always a trade-off when you're playing a vehicle like this. You can't have the best of everything, but this thing is pretty damn close to being perfect. This lineup was just absolutely a blast to play. I really enjoyed Japan 11.0 a lot more than I thought I was going to. You know, these vehicles, I highly recommend that you guys go out and grind the Japanese tree if you haven't already. It's not a very long one. In fact, I think it requires the least amount of XP to complete in terms of ground trees, meaning you can get up to these vehicles fairly quickly. Another reason why I recommend them is they have a solid premium in the lineup, obviously the Type 90B Fuji, which after doing this lineup and playing it and really getting to test these vehicles out, I have to say it is one of the most solid premium vehicles in the game. Now, obviously, if you have completed the Japanese tech tree, you may be thinking, well, there's no real reason for me to pick up this premium, right? Well, again, that's up to you. If you guys ever see it on sale or for a 50% off, I would say definitely pick it up because it is quite literally just an additional Type 90B. So you can get a second one and add it to your lineup. And yeah, I guess the camo netting is cool, but I generally don't apply that to my Type 90B Fuji just because, I don't know, I like the more simplistic boxy look of the traditional Type 90B. Obviously, it's not as good as the TKX Proto. The TKX Proto, having the Gen 2 thermals, just makes it leaps and bounds better than the other Type 90s, but obviously that is a far cry from saying that these vehicles are terrible, because they're all insane. I mean, you still have a 4-second reload, you still have great reverse speed, great top speed, and great flexibility with where you can go and how you just have that control over a lot of the engagements. So for people that are looking for that just kind of, you know, vehicle that it's so fun to play, that vehicle that just absolutely never lets you down, these are these vehicles for me. Now, this is all personal opinion, and of course, I'm sure many of you have tried out these vehicles. Perhaps you don't like them, maybe you do. But this has been my take. This has been my opinion on these vehicles, and again, I highly recommend that you guys try these things out if you haven't. And if you guys don't like these vehicles, let me know what your reasonings are down in the comment sections below. But with that said, this has been the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found this video useful. Maybe it inspired you to start grinding Japan in War Thunder. And with that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care, everyone.